Hail, and welcome back to Elder Futhark Rune Divination 101. It's almost 5 a.m. here. I told you guys with the beginning of my Excarnation of the Lamb video that I would be uploading Sowilo this weekend. I'm afraid that some other things came in between, but I'm now sitting here on Monday morning, like I said, almost 5 a.m., recording so that I can, at least upload it in roughly the time frame in which I said I would. So, regarding the Excarnation of the Lamb series, I have finished editing the last video. I have just not yet put it up. Like I said, there were some unforeseen circumstances, magical in nature actually, that came up and that have now been dealt with. In fact, that's part of the reason why I am sitting here at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm, let's just say, very energized after dealing with these particular issues. And yeah, I can't yet reveal too much on that, but let's just say that what just took place was a very fitting end to the second eight and the rune that we are going to be discussing today, which is Sowilo, the Sun Rune, the Rune of Revelation, the Rune of Victory. And it is also a fitting circumstance for the next rune, Tiwaz, the Rune of Warriors. So, I hope you're all feeling great, that you're all feeling wonderful. I know I do. The Excarnation of the Lamb video will likely be up in a day or two after this one. I usually try to, space out the videos a little bit because the Excarnation of the Lamb videos were kind of a one take, except the ritual itself, which I filmed separately. But the original, trilogy, I suppose, was originally a one single video, and yeah, I had to chop that up into smaller chunks, obviously. So anyway, with that said, Sowilo, the Sun Rune, the last rune of the second eight. Sowilo is our gift, our present for finishing the second eight, like Wunyo, the rune of joy and happiness, was for the first eight. And it's quite peculiar that every time I seem to finish an 8, there's some random jackass that starts hurling curses for whatever reason. This may seem a little strange, but as I said earlier, there were some magical instances that, were happening. I will elaborate more on them in Tiwaz, because I feel that Tiwaz, being the warrior rune, is a very suitable rune for this particular topic that I want to, even right now, discuss with you guys. I feel it is a interesting thing that I have every time I finish an 8, that there have been magicians who, for some reason, either went out of their way to curse myself or curse my friend at the end of an 8. I mean, this is the second time this has happened at the time that I have the last rune in a particular 8. As I said, it happened with Wunyo, and it has now again today happened with Sowilo, right as I was intending on completing it. So I found that rather amusing. I mean, it's part of what I do. Protection is one of my fortes. Yeah, I deal with this kind of stuff all the time, I deal with nasty entities and spirits a lot. I deal with nasty people a lot. So, as I have stated before, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. But individuals that, for whatever reason, seek to go out of their way to do particular things, let's just say that the rune Sowilo was a indicator of the outcome. For myself, that is. So, Sowilo, the Sun Rune, the Rune of Victory, the Rune of Triumph, the Rune of Energy. Sun is the shield of the clouds and shining ray, and destroyer of ice, says the Icelandic rune poem, as was quoted in the beginning of the video. Sowilo is the 16th rune of the Elder Futhark and the last rune of the second 8, and it therefore concludes 2/3 of the Elder Futhark. We are just 8 more runes away after this from completing our initiation into the Elder Futhark. So the modern day letter equivalent is the letter S, as in sun or shine or sword, words like that. The associated astrological body is obviously the sun, soul. The associated element is therefore obviously fire. The sun is obviously oftentimes associated with fire. It is a bright, warm, though sometimes burning energy that is released when one thinks of Sowilo. It is an energy that can be used offensively as well as defensively, and it warms those in need of warmth, but it burns those in need of being taken down a notch, which I also found to be a very fitting interpretation. Again, in this case it was my friend who was the target, my roommate, and they did absolutely nothing to deserve whatever was coming to them. It was particularly strange because I was working on a spell before I was going to record this video, and my roommate comes stumbling out of the room, and they're like, yeah, I feel weird, I can't feel my legs properly, and it feels like my tendons have been slashed, and you know, all that sort of thing, and like their eyes were all like red and droopy and like strange and no energy, had no coordination, couldn't focus, stuff like that. And I'm looking at him and I'm going like, yeah, you're cursed, because this was not natural. It could have been something medical. So what I did is I first assigned a spell, and after that succeeded, they suddenly, their energy returned, they rejuvenated. You know, so this to me was proof that I was right, that it was in fact a curse, whether it was meant for me and just deflected from my protections, because, well, like I said, protection is one of my fortes. So, yeah, but no, I don't know. It is quite strange to me. Maybe it affected them because it couldn't lodge or attach itself to me. So I returned the package to sender, and yeah, I hope they enjoy it. So, to continue, because the associated element, as we were talking about, is fire. And as I said, it sometimes burns those in need of being taken down a notch, and that is exactly what Sowilo does. Sowilo is a very, very powerful rune, but before I unleash my torrent of enthusiasm, I'll run down the list further. The associated god is Balder, the Lord of Light. Balder is the beloved son of the gods, of course. He is said to radiate so brightly that light shines from him. He was also said to be pure, and yeah, his brother Hodr, or Hodr, or Huther, or however you want to pronounce it, the blind god of darkness, who is his twin brother, is of course his counterpart. Now we all know the myths where it says that Loki tricks Hodr into shooting Balder with a mistletoe arrow, because the mistletoe was the only thing on Earth that could harm Balder, because the gods did not see the mistletoe as a threat. So what did Loki do? He obviously got the mistletoe and had Hodr, Balder's twin brother, shoot Balder, because, you know, they were just basically playing games, and they were throwing their spears and their javelins and their, you know, they're shooting arrows at him because nothing could harm him. So, yeah, Balder died because that arrow had mistletoe, and Balder stayed there with his wife, I believe, and all seemed lost. Of course, this was the prelude to Ragnarok, because it was said that the Fimbulwinter, or the long winter, the great winter, it would last for 3 years, because there was obviously no sun. So, yeah, that was the prelude to Ragnarok, supposedly. And we all know how that goes. The gods die, lots of giants die, a lot of creatures die, mankind dies, the Einherjar die, 2 human beings survive, a man and a woman. They hide in the in the specific part of Yggdrasil, and everything starts over. And Balder climbs back, claws his way out of the realm of the dead, and he rules over the new world. So that is the mythology as we know it from the Eddas. And in that sense, Balder was the greatest victor of all, because he survives Ragnarok. Not even Odin can say that. So, or so they say. That is the myth, and as you all know, if you followed my channel for a while, you know that I don't take the myths literally at all. I take them with a very big grain of salt. But that's the story for you, the rough, watered down version. So I think therefore that this particular myth of Balder and him conquering death itself and eventually rising up to become the ruler of the new world, I find it a beautiful myth. It is how a true Germanic soul thinks there is victory even in death. So, Sowilo, it has no reverse, only a converse and upright meaning due to its shape. At least that is the case in the version I'm using. There is a older Sowilo that is drawn differently. I personally use the more well-known variant. I, however, will also show you the less well-known but older variant right now. These 2 different Sowilos, they can be used, as you can tell. The Sowilo that I use, which is what you will be seeing throughout this video, other than the picture I just showed you, is, as I said, the more prominent, the more well-known variety. It has no reverse because it looks like an S. And the other variety does have a reverse. Now, this is a little bit of a dilemma, or at least it was when I was making this video. I did choose not to include a reverse Sowilo description. Why? Because, well, as I said, I used the mildly newer variety of Sowilo, which has no reverse. Therefore, I do not think it is my place to comment on that, because I have never used it in divination like that. So, I will leave that up to you personally to decide. It is my understanding that most people, in fact, use the variety that I use, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. However, if you are someone that likes using the oldest variety because you feel it is either more legit or because you feel that it is more matching with your own personal energetic feelings and connections towards that, that is perfectly fine. However, like I said, because I don't want to be pretentious and, you know, claim to have insight onto something that I have actually never used, I am just going to leave it out. So if you want to have a reversed Sowilo, meaning, you know, I would advise you to look elsewhere. That is literally the only thing I cannot, with confidence, give you in this series. Sowilo, the Rune of the Sun, the Rune of Victory, the Rune of Energy, the Rune of Revelation, and a very mighty Rune of Protection. So the Havamal speaks thusly, "And 11th I know, if haply I lead my old comrades out to war, I sing 'neath the shields, and they fare forth mightily, safe into battle, safe out of battle, and safe return from the strife. So we see in this verse of the poem that Sowilo is kind of sung as a sort of spell song of victory, of protection, safeguarding yourself, of safeguarding your allies, your friends, your kin. It is therefore, along with Aiwaz, with Furisas, with Algis, or Elhaz if you prefer to call Algis Elhaz. It provides a series of powerful protective runes that enable and empower us in a magical, psychological, and even physical sense to reach our goals. So with the rune of Sowilo engraved or otherwise applied, we are filled with knowledge and revelation on how to reach our goals, how to make the best of what a situation is, and if the situation is dire, to turn it around in our favor on how to do that. And Sowilo is it's a mighty shield, because not only does it offer protection like Olgiz, like Aivaz, like Furisas, but it also has in it the capabilities of bringing victory. Now, of course, as most of you know, the Waffen SS from Nazi Germany used two Sowilos as their emblem. And this is, of course, for many people, when they see the rune Sowilo, or at least the variety of Sowilo that I personally use, they relate this immediately back to Nazism. I mean, I have that version of Sowilo on this shirt that I'm wearing now. And I'm not going to lie, I've had some looks where people were like, oh, you must be racist. And, whatever, let them think that. I know I'm not, I know where I'm standing, and, So, I mean, that might be a reason for you to use the older version. That is entirely up to you. Personally, I am a huge fan of reclaiming symbols that were used for a given purpose that they were originally not intended for. I find it quite empowering and liberating, actually. I mean, a swastika, for example, is another symbol that Nazi Germany adopted, that is also from Germanic pagan beliefs and rites and rituals and magics. Of course, the swastika was often used as a empowering symbol. It was often used as I've heard people say the sun wheel, that it's similar to that. Indeed, I've used swastikas in magic because I very much enjoy using Germanic symbolism, like Germanic pagan symbolism, that is, and I have had nothing but good results from it. And in fact, I feel that very much that the ancestors approve of this. I feel very much a sense of approval whenever I decide to put these symbols down. Not because the ancestors are racist or something like that. No, in fact, I would dare say that they are happy that there's people out there who are willing to reclaim symbols from something that has, in the minds of most people, obviously become associated with, what we would consider evil. So, I find that something to keep in mind. Do not shy away from using certain symbols. I mean, you might want to, shy away from using it in public to avoid the flack that comes along with that. I understand that. However, I would not shy away from it in magical practices, simply because it was associated with some regime or another. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway. Sowilo is also the rune of energy. It is an assistant to us in finding our inner strength. It brings us warmth. It breaks and melts the ice of stagnation, of inertia. The old useless patterns that we have going on or had going on. it brings us victory in all we attempt, whether it is in breaking those old patterns, whether it is in breaking our foe, whether it is in breaking a certain situation that is not to our benefit. So Sowilo, it brings the light, the true light, the light of victory, not the false lights as we have so often seen in our world nowadays, as we are so often offered. So what I'm of course implying by that is where there is religious complacency and ignorance and folly offered to us. Where we are encouraged to submit, to be weak, to be like sheep, to not stand up for ourselves, and to just let God judge everybody. And this is of course not how pre-Christianity, pre the Abrahamic religions, things went in the world. We very much are a species that have always carried out justice and governed ourselves according to natural law, I would dare say. So Sowilo, it brings us strength in our endeavors. It brings even healing, regeneration. It can thus, serve as an amplifying rune for many other kinds of bind runes or spells or whatever you're doing. A bind rune is a spell. So, or you can use it as a sort of talisman, charm, or whatever. The possibilities are endless. That's what I love about these symbols. They're a magical system in and of themselves, and the combinations are nearly endless. And you can come up with whatever your desire is, whatever you wish to use the runes for. You can probably use it. You can probably use them for achieving your particular wanted end. So, the intent that you wish to amplify, whether this is a healing spell, Sowilo can amplify it. It can indicate the victory of the healing energies over the opposing energies. Victory can be achieved in battle, whether that is a physical battle. If you are a soldier, a warrior, you may consider, carrying a Sowilo with you or having it tattooed on you or whatever. You can have victory in spiritual battles and magical battles, as I have found out. Sowilo, it just is a very, very powerful rune that is truly something that is a deserved closure to the second aid, because I think, if you have actually been with me on, developing your understanding of the runes, developing yourself with the runes, developing and empowering your magics with the runes, you will have been put through similar trials, tribulations, or at least those that suit you, and you will have found that the second aid was just so much tougher than the first aid. At least for me it was, because as I have mentioned before, I have been put through some pretty fucked up trials for the purpose of this particular aid. And in the beginning of the first half of the second aid, I still didn't feel quite comfortable discussing my personal issues and struggles and things that I was put through. The later half of the second aid, I started opening up a little bit more, loosening up a little bit more about these kinds of things. And I think in some ways, if I'm a viewer to someone, I like to hear their personal input rather than just have someone rattle off a list of assigned properties and values, because that's what gives it that personal touch for me. So eventually I decided to, if I feel that way, there's probably a lot of other people that feel that way, and I decided to start doing that, which is why in pretty much every video now I start interjecting certain things. So, as I said, Sowilo can bring victory in all manner of combat. It can bring victory in, you know, overcoming our own minds, our own weaknesses, our own inertia, holding ourselves back in some way, shape, or form. If someone else is being held back in achieving their goals and you care about them, it can help in that too. It is a rune of victory no matter how you see it. It is a rune of revelation and therefore can bring knowledge. It can help us bring insight and wisdom into a particular thing, into a particular matter, into a particular individual even, if so inclined, if so desired. Now, of course, these probabilities and capabilities, you may want to combine them with other runes, with other, expressions of your magical desires to incorporate Sowilo with. That is at least how I would personally do it, because, I suppose you could program Sowilo to a specific end when you are carving it or drawing it or, whatever you do to bring about your runic magic. So, the possibilities are many. The Rune Sowilo is, as I said, indeed a very valuable reward for our trials throughout the second eight. And in inheriting this gift of Sowilo and inheriting this very powerful, very bright solar energy, I would almost go so far as to say that we eventually, with proper preparation, proper training, we may become like Bowler in that we will find victory even in death. So, Sowilo is a invaluable gift for all those that work with the Elder Futhark and those that engage in warfare of any kind, really. We will find Sowilo's lessons invaluable in the lessons that await us in the final eight of the Elder Futhark as well, which is where we will enter a battle of the higher self, I would almost call it. There are many runes that relate to more physical aspects, such as Ophila, where we will be talking about ancestry, where we will be talking about our descendants, where we will be talking about inheritance, where we will be talking about the homestead, the hearth, about our homes, stuff like that. But there will also be a lot of esoteric runes where, like manas, it's the self, it's our entire being, how to properly combine everything that we have learned so far in the Futhark, because Olgiz helped us unlock our higher selves more fully. It helped us empower ourselves in that sense. It helped us find out our purpose, our destiny. I very much know that was the case for me. Olgiz was a massive turning point for me where I went like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm just not going to, hide in the shadows with my thoughts anymore. I'm going to go out there with my ideas, with my vision for this world, and so I found it highly amusing to discover some areas of myself, a particular mindset that I had been hiding away from myself for so long, which has come out in the past several days, and then found its conclusion today. And I am now actually more convinced than ever that this is the, kind of spirit worker I'm supposed to be. And I very, very, very much have always longed to walk on a path like this, but I've always been told by false spiritual teachers that I wasn't supposed to walk this path because we're all about, love and peace and light, and no shamans are supposed to be this and that. And no, I am a shaman in the Germanic tradition, we are a people who fight. However you want to put it, we are a people that fight. And this is no different for the spiritual workers that hail from that tradition. And I very much think that, for me personally at least, and of course I understand the necessity for those that focus mostly or exclusively on healing, I very much value that. I very much think there is a need for it, especially nowadays. So, if you are a spiritual worker and you are watching this and you are, devoted to healing, you are absolutely needed. You are absolutely needed in this world. But people like me are also needed, people who fight, people who protect, people who, work through more aggressive means to reach certain ends. And, if that is what needs to happen, then that is what needs to happen. I can, quite frankly, no longer tolerate this Christian idea of everything needs to be love and peace and let God sort them out. No, I'm sorry. We've given Yahweh about 2,000 years, longer even, to show that he indeed cares about humanity, and obviously he does not. The Germanic Norse gods have shown to me that they do care about us. They very much care about us. Most pagan gods that I have spoken to care about us in a way that Yahweh does not. They don't expect us to grovel. They don't expect us to kneel. So, they want to raise us up. They want to lift us up. They want to drag us out of their, out of the pit that humanity has fallen in spiritually. Because of course there are plenty of positive developments, such as medical sciences, psychological fields, stuff like that. But it is quite clear to me that the beings or being that are currently the dominant religions, I should say, in the vast majority of the world is not here for our best interest, but rather here for our enslavement. But more on that you will find in my other series, Excarnation of the Lamb, which is a very edgy title, I'm aware, if you know what excarnation means. But there it is. So, yeah. Now, I feel that this is part of my personal victory over my old self. I like to think that that old self is dead. It is dead, in fact. It is absolutely dead. I have become a new man, and I am very proud of the man that I am now. So, I very, very much would encourage all of you that are watching this to follow what you feel needs to happen. If you feel called to a particular spiritual path, whether that is healing, whether that is being a protector, whether that is someone who, does other kinds of work, everything is necessary, everything is needed in that sense. And quite frankly, I don't think that the world has enough spiritual workers, magicians, sorcerers, sorceresses, witches, druids, shamans, whatever. I don't think that the world has enough of us, because there are still so many people who do feel the call, but they just don't have it in their minds, in their hearts yet. I mean, I should say they have it in their hearts, but they haven't quite found the courage in their minds to rise up. And I feel that many people want to break free from the current restraint. I mean, everybody I speak to in the metaphysical, they all say the same thing. There is something brewing, there is something boiling, And if you live in the heart of Alabama, you may not feel it that strong if you are not that familiar with other people who engage in this kind of stuff. But out here in sunny Arizona, wow, there's a lot of people that engage in the metaphysical, which I find rather pleasant. But they all say the same thing. There is something coming, there's something brewing, and I can't help but agree. And it's going to be turbulent, it's going to be violent, yeah, in my opinion, exciting times. So, in short, I guess what I'm saying is, if you are watching this and you are feeling the need to engage in spiritual or magical work, but you have so far found yourself lacking the courage, meditate on Sowilo, meditate on what it means, meditate on the fact that the old gods are not dead. They're far from dead. They've just been laying in wait. They've just been waiting for the time when humankind would wake up, when humankind just couldn't take it anymore. And I feel that time is starting now. Because if you want my personal opinion, Ragnarok already happened once, maybe repeatedly. Because again, I don't take the myths literally. I think Ragnarok is the end of a cycle. And I think that is what Balder rising from the dead represents to people like us. Balder rising is the resurgence of true light, breaking the darkness that is posing as the false light. Because humankind already has its own deities. We already have deities that are good to us if you are good to them. And that is, of course, how it should be, a gift for a gift. That is the essence and principle of Gabo. So, if I can impart a little gift to some of you maybe that are listening to this, watching this, I would encourage you to embrace your desire to engage in these things and to rise up and claim your destiny, as it were. So, with that said, I like to continue. So, in the last 8, the third 8 that we are going to be facing, we will be facing many topics and old wounds that have been inflicted on us, that we have inflicted perhaps on ourselves in order to cope with certain stressors. And this will help us to reach closure. And this will likely be done through runes like Manas, through runes like Lagus, Burkano, healing runes basically, runes that deal very much with regeneration, with fertility, with intuitive capabilities, with mending, with washing clean. And of course, we will find that the Elder Futhark closes with whoever that is in your opinion, Ophila or Dagas. In my opinion, it's Dagas. So we will find with the closure of the Elder Futhark with Dagas that transformation will take place. It is your gift, your right to have that new dawn, to have that new beginning, to have that closure of a cycle, to have the beginning of a new one, a better one. One where you are more empowered, one where you are more equipped to handle the things that are thrown your way, where you are no longer a normal mortal, quote unquote, where you have mastered powers that are beyond the reach of many in this world. Believe me, magic works. I've seen it time and again. So happy that I chose the path that I did, because without these gifts, without this destruction of my old self, I would not be where I am today, and I would still be feeling like I had no purpose in life, almost. Because, I mean, maybe some people are okay to, live their lives and go to a job from 9 to 5 every day for 5 days a week, have kids after they get married or before then, and then die. I mean, that is of course the fate that awaits all of us, at least the dying part, and for most of us, the kid part. But quite frankly, I have always felt that there was more to the world, there was more to reality than being caught up in the rat race. And magic has given me such freedom, such an invaluable hobby almost as well, because I do magic with such a passion that I don't know how I could envision my life otherwise than that it currently is, because I love engaging with this stuff. It makes me feel alive, and in this sense, Sowilo, even though it was a relatively simple rune to meditate on, to discover the capabilities of, it is a very, 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 very valuable rune to me, because it signifies what I'm feeling. And I have to say that I have come to find out that I enjoy having some form of adversity, and that may seem strange to say, but the path that I walk, the shamanic path that I walk, it is meant to have adversity, and it is meant to show me trials that I need to overcome, because there is something enchanting about that to me. So every time something like what I discussed happens, every time, and of course this was, like I said, I don't quite know if it was meant for me or if it was meant for my roommate, for my friend, but regardless, it was remedied, and that other person is now likely paying for that. No, not likely, the other person is paying for that, and that suits me perfectly fine. So, and I'm not saying that because I am some sort of sadist, but I'm sure that many people will understand that, if you touch my friends, or if you touch me, you better find a very, 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 very secluded place to hide. So, and I'm sure many of you will share that sentiment, because there are few gifts in life more valuable than other people who stand by you. And to see someone like that attacked, it is... Let's just say that there was no way that this could have ended any other way. So... Which brings me to the next point, because a cycle never truly ends, which is also what Dagas is about to me, which is part of the reason why I place it at the end of the Futhark. Because Dagas is the rune of transformation, it is also the rune of dawn, it is the rune of a new start, of a new cycle. That's why I cannot help but place it at the end of the Futhark. But again, if you feel the need to put Ophila last, that is fine as well. I will of course be uploading it in the order in which I prefer it, so of course what you could do is wait until I upload Dagas and then watch Dagas first and then watch Ophila last. That is up to you, of course. But you know, Sowilo is not just a rune of defense or energy, due to the fact that victory often requires the complete overthrow of our enemies, because otherwise they will likely resurface at a later date. Attack is often called for. So Sowilo is not just a symbol of defense, it is not just a symbol of revelation of energy, of victory, but it is a symbol of victory also in the sense that in order for you to win, in order for you to completely win a fight, a war, a battle, you have to likely go on the offense at some point. Because just sitting on a defensive will just, of course, allow your enemy to recuperate. Because attrition, unless you end the enemy, only goes so far. So, now of course, attacking, you know, Sowilo is then also a symbol of attack. Like a lightning bolt hurled by Thor himself, Sowilo teaches us that we should strike swiftly and surely, that we should plan, prepare, and know the weaknesses of our enemy, so that we may strike hardest where it hurts most. And after we do this, after we dealt such a massive blow to the enemy that they cannot recover, that is when victory is assured. So now we come to the divination portion of the video. So first off, as always, we start off with the upright meaning. And again, to reiterate, because I personally use the more common version of Sowilo, and not the very oldest version, as I have shown you in the early stages of the video, where I gave you the example of the younger version, older version, excuse me. That one has a reverse. The one that I personally use does not, due to its shape. So please understand, because I don't use it, I can't really give you any insights on what the reversed version of what the reversed meaning of Sowilo is exactly. That would be unethical of me, because I don't have well, quite frankly, the experience. Engage in explanations of that particular way. So, Sowilo upright in divination is a victory symbol. It symbolizes that we have the energy, the tools, the knowledge, and the determination to see matters through successfully. It means that if we continue on our path, on our current path that is, and we keep our heads in the game, we will find success in our endeavors, and victory in our undertakings. Alternatively, if the query one is posing the runes involves some sort of unknown element, the runes may be advising you to continue on your current path, as the revelation of the answers you are seeking is nearer than you may think. In this case, I would recommend perhaps some further inquiry of the runes to see if there is anything further the runes wish to divulge on the matter, and if there are any oversights that need to be looked at more closely, or preparations that need to be made before the before you see the completion of a specific project or issue. Regardless, Sowilo is in a rune reading. Sowilo in a rune reading regards a reward, revelation, or a victory over an issue that we have been facing, depending, of course, on the way the spread is laid out. So an example of that, of upright Sowilo, would be the following. Now, suppose that one has been without a job for a while. You are submitting a resume, you are, applying left and right, but so far you have not found a suitable job, right? So you have been rejected time and time again. No matter where you apply, you just can't seem to get that job. So you do a rune reading and you get revealed the rune Isa as the challenge rune, alright? So beyond that lays Sowilo in the outcome or future slots of the reading, depending, of course, on what kind of reading you are doing, what kind of method you are using. And at this point, you sit down, you perform a ritual in order to draw the desired job into your life, as well as to target any and all manners of blockages, thought patterns, habits that you may have that are holding you back from finding that right kind of job that you are looking for yourself. And so, as these blockages are becoming clearer, you rid yourself of them. And now, as a result, you are unhindered by old restraints. You are more likely to apply to jobs that are suitable and desirable for you at this time. So within a few weeks, you then find the job you were looking for. In this case, the runes therefore signify that you needed to let go of the inertia of Isa before you could reach the warmth and victorious energies of Sowilo. So what does Sowilo upright mean in a spiritual context to me? Well, first off, after we connected more thoroughly with the divine self, of ours, as we were going through the trials of Algiz, Elhaz, if you prefer. So our destiny, as I mentioned earlier in this video, my destiny certainly has, it became a lot clearer, so we learned to face our fears, and we've, come to more fully understand the thoughts of the gods, the burdens, the plights, the motives that a divine being faces. We've come to understand that without light there can be no darkness, and vice versa. So even though Hodor, the blind god of darkness, slays his brother Balder with the mistletoe arrow at the behest of Loki, Balder eventually rises as the ruler of the gods of the new world after Ragnarok. Now, in this, Sowilo, being the sun rune, and thus our most physical representation of light that we have on planet Earth, it teaches us the lessons that Balder has already learned. Like I said, that there is a victory even in death. And now this is of course certainly the case for those warriors who fight and die when they have the blessing and approval of Odin and or Freya, because of course many people don't know this, but Odin does not in fact receive 100% of the warriors that die in battle. In fact, Freya in Folkvanger, where she resides, gets the first pick, and she gets to keep 50% of all the warriors that get selected by the Valkyries, or Valkyries, however you want to pronounce it. And so certainly for those Einherjar, for those brave souls that fought and died and lived bravely, they certainly found victory in death, for they became something more than just what they were in life. So, and I think that the example of the Einherjar in this context can certainly give us a something to strive for, something to think about. Even though the vast majority of us may not be warriors in a physical sense, there are probably quite a lot of you that may use magic for specific ends to protect and to deal with certain individuals that harm those that you love, as I have discussed in the beginning of this video, and that is actually part of the reason why I decided to even begin talking about that, because I very much feel that it ties into this. So if a physical warrior, and perhaps if you are watching this, you are a follower of the old Germanic Norse gods, and you may be a soldier enlisted in the army or wherever you wherever you serve, what method of service. So if that is the case, first off, a lot of respect to you, because you cannot be a practitioner of this particular tradition and not honor those who are physical warriors or soldiers. In fact, I wanted to at one time join the armed forces myself in my native country, the Netherlands, but I was rejected because I had hay fever. Yeah, I kid you not. But yeah, so like the Einherjar that. So as I said, as Baldur arises after Ragnarok is over, after the old world is destroyed, we rise up, and like Baldur, after our old selves are destroyed, after our old selves are dead, we rise and we become something greater. Baldur went on to become the ruler of the new world. And so we too, where we were before but helpless pawns in the games of governments, in the games of institutions, in the games of other people, whether that be our religions, whether that be our families, whether that be false friends, we have now risen up at the end of the second eight, after having been unshackled, after having been unchained, after having been unleashed. We now have risen up, we have done away with the old, we have killed our old selves, we have killed that what was holding us back. And now victory awaits us. And we will very strongly start seeing this in the third eight, where we are no longer dealing so much with many external forces, but we are instead journeying deeper into ourselves to clean up certain misconceptions we may have. Tiwaz, the next rune, is a very, very powerful rune to me. It is a rune of courage, it is the rune of warriors, it is the rune of justice, because Tiwaz is Tiu, is Tyr, is the left-handed god, of course, who sacrificed his right hand to the wolf Fenrir. Tiwaz is a rune that is, in that sense, already beginning that journey, where we journey into ourselves. And of course, I'm not going to divulge too much, otherwise, there won't be any material for the next rune. But Tiwaz encourages us to journey within ourselves, with that energy of Sowilo, to take it and then develop our own senses, but more on that later. Because Isa, the representation of ice, mist, and stagnation, is the emphasis of Sowilo, the rune of victory, light, and overcoming. We are, in essence, ever in a war with the forces that seek to stagnate and suppress our rise, our ascent to the top, where we want to become the ever-burning sun to illuminate those around us, to bring warmth to those around us, to bring power and revelation and happiness to those around us, where we seek to become powerful ourselves to help raise up our fellow man, where we seek to empower our kin, our family, our friends, our loved ones, basically. So, you know, we are the ever-rising sons of victory that seek to, like Balder, claw our ways out of the dark pits of ignorance in which this world has been enshrouded so long by religious dogma and bullshit, and you know, the gods of true darkness that represent in essence you know, all these things of ignorance and slavery. But here's of course the catch, because all these beings, they represent themselves as forces of light. It's of course funny that the Bible actually says that Satan never goes on to present himself as an angel of light. But if you really think about it, Yahweh, the God of the Christians, which is not Christ of course, because Yahweh is God the Father, you know, if you think about it, is Yahweh not the ultimate puppet master? Has he not had everyone believe that he is the supreme creator? Has he not made everybody believe that he is a benevolent being? It's hidden in plain sight. You know, it's hidden in plain sight, but people just don't read. I mean, back in the medieval era, there was the excuse that the common folk did not have access to the Bible because the Bible was in Latin. But nowadays, people don't have that excuse. All they need to do is pick up their holy books and honestly start reading, but they don't. So Yahweh has still this hold over people's minds. He still enshrouds and clouds everybody's vision. And now, likely, if you are watching this, you are not one of those people, and I am very, very happy for you. But again, that is partially discussed in my other series, Excarnation of the Lamb. If you would find that interesting, please go, take a look there. Again, the ritual that I am discussing in that particular series, or at least the first ritual that I am discussing in that particular series, will be up a couple days after the uploading of this video. So, anyway, so taking into account the lessons that we have learned from the Second Aid, the disruption we experienced from Hagalas, the turbulent, violent energies of the hailstorms that came battering down upon us, but that in the end really was just water that was frozen, and then it just fell off of us. But then we also were faced with the binding, restraining, restricting, and sometimes even choking energies of Naudis, from which we have and are still breaking free. And of course I'm saying that because there is ever a work internally from which we seek to ascend beyond our former selves, from our former, brainwashing, our indoctrinations that we have faced as children, as young adults, as teenagers, while growing up, and from society at large. We are still bombarded 24/7 with propaganda. We are never truly free until we become truly free from the hold of Naudis. So we continue to develop and find our true self, not just upon the moment of our physical death, but as magicians, as sorcerers, as spiritual workers. We are doing so in the flesh. We are doing so in the physical. We are, in essence, drawing down the true selves that we have up there that so many people have forgotten their access to, because they really just believe that we're here And even if they don't just believe that they're here, they still believe that they only have access to the here. And that is where we have such a ginormous advantage as magicians, as spirit workers, because we know that we are much more than just, meat puppets, that we know that we are much more than just one-time incarnations before we go to our final pit stop to be tortured eternally, or to hang out in heaven and play harp. So we are battering through the ice of Isa, melting it with our newfound energetic strength. We are ever burning it away with the light of Kanos, the warmth of Kanos, and now we have Sowilo, which is an even stronger light, which is an even stronger revealing energy because it brings us victory. Of course, we are also taking into account those valuable lessons taught to us by Yira's harvest, that sometimes patience is required before we get the full revelation of things, before we get to the end, because that is, of course, what Yira was. It was a sign of, hang in there, we're almost out of this shithole. And Perfro, it birthed, it birthed our knowledge from its womb, where we started understanding further the laws of Weird and Orlok, of cause and effect, of our decisions versus the decisions of those around us, and how all these forces intertwine and interlock and interchange with each other. So, and then at last, of course, we came to the fear of Algis, the fear of our own divine might, the fear of the divine might of the gods. And we met the gods, and then we met our highest self, who is in essence also a god. No, not in essence, who is also a god. Because we reached down into the lowest planes and we faced our fears. We reached up and we again faced our fears. And then we found out that all our humility was to be stripped away, because the gods said to us, walk with us, don't follow us. And so we did, and that is why we arrived at Sowilo. We arrived at victory. We stand tall over the battlefield that is our mind. We stand tall, perhaps even in a more literal battlefield, whether it's spiritual or physical. Our banner is firmly planted on the hill that we sought to take. We have taken that hill. Even if it was an uphill battle, we have still succeeded. We have still triumphed. So it is this hill that has held the treasures that we have sought after. Our increased divine connection, our understanding, because remember that Sowilo brings with it revelation, it brings with it the essence of our divine self, and it channels it down into our physical body so that at last we understand who we are. We understand the broad version of who we are. And because we finally now understand who we really are, or at least the majority of it, because this will be refined, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the third aid. Because we now understand this, we now have much more access to our gifts, to our strengths, and we are stripping away all these issues that we perhaps first did not entirely believe were there, but then we were forced to be confronted with it, and we found out that not just are these issues real, there are beings that potentially cause these issues. We have found that these issues are not here without cause, at the very least. We have explored the depths of our restraint, of our limitations. We have seen our limitations, and we have worked to overcome them, and we will be working to overcome them. We will be empowering ourselves further and further. We will be healing ourselves so that our limitations will become our strengths. Finally, of course, we are aiming for the completion of the Futhark. We are aiming towards that goal of becoming rune masters. We are aiming for the title of Rune Master. We are aiming to become no longer initiates, to no longer be dabblers, to no longer be practitioners. We wish to become masters. We wish to be strong in the things that have been given to us, the things for which we have suffered, the things for which we have paid quite a high price sometimes. And we want to help other people, hopefully, with these things. We have received spiritual enlightenment in that sense from Sowilo, that we now understand that sometimes life just isn't rainbows and unicorns and nice happy things. And we know and understand now that sometimes there are people that just need to do what needs to be done. And that is a very valuable lesson. When you can finally sit down on the couch at night and hold a beer in your hand and tell yourself, yes, I had to do this. I had to go through all these things, and I don't regret any of it any longer. Because sometimes our morals, they are forced to make way for something that benefits the greater good, the development of our individual self, and also mankind as a whole. We know that through the laws of weird, that our actions will ripple through a pond. Our actions are the rocks that are thrown into the pond, and the ripples are the effects that carry forth until perhaps they reach the end of reality, if there even is such a thing. And even though sometimes it may feel as if our actions are inconsequential, as if it may feel that sometimes our actions are not having much of an effect, we don't know that. Not until it is much later in time. So in this we are almost like, where we have become almost like chess players. Our every move strategic, thought out, hopefully 10 turns in advance. We're not unlike a warlord sometimes that seeks to overthrow an oppressive regime, whether that is internal or sometimes even external. Because magic has no limitations. If that is what you want to do with it, by all means. So, sometimes we are overthrowing regimes, sometimes we are overthrowing our internal regimes. Whether it is to make ourselves more free, whether it is to make our species more free, more accepting, more resilient, or allowing us personally to grow, in the process. So Sowilo in this sense is a call to arms almost. Even though it is the rune that brings victory, victory requires that you take action first. It encourages us to sing its song under the shields of our friends, allies, brothers and sisters, as the arrows of opposition rain down on us from all sides as we are standing in the shield wall. So as Yira has taught us, however, we should never become complacent, even though right now we may feel a taste of victory. The war is not yet over, in other words. It is merely the battle of the second aid that we have won, and in which we have found victory. So then we come to Sowilo Converse and what that means in divination. Sowilo Converse appearing in a divination method is often assigned that victory, though sometimes expected, is not achievable and or feasible just yet. More work may need to be done on the particular issue that you are inquiring about. You are asked to be honest with yourself about your internal matters, about your thoughts, your feelings, your perception, stuff like that regarding this particular situation. You are called on to, honestly observe the situation that you are inquiring about, to accept the situation as it currently is, not for the sake of giving up, mind you. It is, for the sake of empowering yourself thoroughly and truly, so that you will be ready to face whatever needs to be faced. And of course, by that I mean that if you accept a situation as it is and then work from there to improve yourself instead of complaining about the situation or fooling yourself, that way you are going to find your empowerment in such a manner in which you can overcome. So at other times, particularly those times concerning healing or mending of a specific issue, a converse Sowilo will indicate that the time has not yet come to truly heal or mend something, or that your efforts to heal or mend are not going according to plan. And this is of course always possible. And this may be either due to the time not being right, or that it may be due to resistance from either yourself or the other party or parties involved. In short, if converse Sowilo shows up in your rune spread, depending on the location of the rune in your spread, of course, it likely means that there is, something missing, something is in need of help, healing, or that a change of mindset is necessary before victory can be achieved. So, an example of seeing a converse Sowilo in a rune reading. Suppose that you are desperately holding on to a dying relationship, and yes, I know that I've used this example before, but it is possible that it may show up like this. I've had stuff like that happen. So, you're trying to hold on to a dying relationship, you're trying to save it, you're trying real hard to work on that. You do a rune cast on the matter, and Sowilo appears converse in the challenge rune slot. And even though it may not seem like a victory to you at the moment, letting go of the relationship, letting it die, may truly be what brings victory in the end. Therefore, in that particular case, the runes may be telling, telling you something. They may be sending you a message, a signal, that many of us may not want to hear. Sometimes we find victory in death. In this case, of course, figurative death. So lastly, Sowilo Converse and what its spiritual meaning and significance is to me. To me, Sowilo Converse represents those times in our lives where we are just not ready for specific things, even though our eagerness in accomplishing and or completing our goals is sincere. Sowilo Converse teaches us that sometimes we just have to be patient, sometimes we have a need for healing, for empowering ourselves further, for practicing more. Sometimes we need to realize for ourselves that our potential is not quite developed enough to reach our particular goals. And in developing our, potential, in developing our gifts, and developing particular things, particular qualities, attributes, skills, will help us to find victory. So Sowilo Converse is then to be seen as an encouragement. It is not to be taken as a letdown. It is kind of like when we were discussing Olga's Converse, we came to the conclusion that it wasn't, an insult. It wasn't that the runes were trying to tell you to stop trying. It was, however, a signal that we ought to develop ourselves further, that we need to work to overcome our fear further, that we need to increase our protections if we wish to pass beyond Algis. And in a similar fashion, this is actually the case with Sowilo when it is in a converse position. It requires further development, it requires further empowerment in that sense, in order for us to reach this true victory. Now, how these two things differ here is because Sowilo is the Rune of Victory and therefore an end. And Algis was just another passage. Algis had to do with fear in and of itself. So even though we may overcome fear, that does not necessarily mean that we are entirely ready for victory. So, converse Sowilo is almost like that, elusive light at the end of a dark tunnel that with perseverance and strength you can easily reach, and you can do so swiftly, in fact, if you are dedicated, if you are committed to your cause and your goals. So know that here, at the end of the second aid, and at the beginning of the third aid, which is, beautifully initiating us with the strength, might, courage, and judgment of the warrior judge Tiwaz, or more commonly known as Tyr these days, of course. We stand at the precipice of the third aid, where we climb the mounts of Olympus, as it were, to truly understand the thoughts of the gods. We will come to understand in this victory and with the revelation brought by Sowilo the judgments that the gods carry out day by day, night by night, until at last they too need to be judged by those beyond them. This judgment, however, and make no mistake about that, does not need to be necessarily bad. It does not need to be negative, because really, judgment in the context in which I'm using it is not necessarily a bad thing, because no matter how one conducts themselves, those that came before, your contemporaries, and always those who come after you, I would almost say especially those that come after you. I mean, just look at many old pagan mythologies like the Sumerians, the Greeks, stuff like that. If you know something about those myths, you will find that younger gods are frequently rebelling against the established order. But it doesn't necessarily need to be negative. The point in case is everybody will always judge you for pretty much every action you take in some way, shape, or form, and whether that judgment is good or bad, or negative, or positive, or neutral, that is, of course, depending on the individual, the action you took, and how you carried it out, stuff like that. For example, the Christian god Yahweh is an example of this, as I have discussed in my other series, Excarnation of the Lamb. Make no mistake, what is happening in the world today, the decline of Christianity, people are getting, sick of Christian doctrine, fortunately, in my opinion. They are getting sick of the repression, of the constant hypocrisy that we see in the churches. Pedophilia is running rampant in many denominations. It's not just the Catholic Church. It's many denominations. And for something that is supposed to be a sacred place of worship, there's an awful lot of disgusting, fucked up shit going on. So, the God that lets all this stuff happen, who claims to be almighty and who claims to be in control of everything, is currently being judged by us and by the gods that stand with us. Now, of course, that leads me to the next point, because Tyr, whom we will be discussing and honoring in the next entry of this series, as we have honored Balder, the god and lord of light, in this entry of the series, Sowilo, he will show us the way of proper conduct, when to accept judgment, when to sit in judgment. So therefore, the third eight is the third eight, the final eight, is the eight of the spirit, the way I understand it. The eight of the conduct of the gods and the proper conduct of those that desire to be gods. So that concludes Sowilo, the 16th rune of the Elder Futhark, and the last rune in the second eight of Hagal's eight. Now, next entry, we will be going into Tyr's 8, and that is of course the third and final 8 of the Elder Futhark, which means that we are approaching, albeit relatively slowly, the end of the Futhark. And I look very much forward to discussing the rune Tiwaz next time. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this entry in this series, and I hope you will join me next time for that particular video. Hell.